So in this video, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about color grading. Color grading is often a tool that a lot of photographers may not use when they're editing. And I have to be honest, I don't always go to color grading, but it is a really nice way to add some additional tones, some additional light, color to your images. So it is important to know how to use it and kind of when to use it. So color grading is here in the Develop module of Lightroom, and it's down underneath your color. So once you've kind of tweaked the colors in your image, you can come down and next would be color grading. So there's lots of ways to use this color grading panel. So I'll walk you through a couple options and then I'll tell you the way I like to use it. So if you click the three circles here, this is where you're going to see these circles for your midtones, your shadows, your highlights. And these are like color wheels. So this is where you could work on, if you wanted to add color to any of these areas of your image, you could work with all three at once. You can also click on each one individually. So if you knew you just wanted to impact the shadows of your image, you could come to shadows, you could go to your midtones or your highlights. Now I'll show you how those work, but I like to use the global. Now global is going to impact your entire image, but it's a nice way to get familiar with color grading and to add some soft color to your image. Now remember that these are going to be global adjustments. So it's not like using the mask tools. This is going to impact your entire image. So I'll show you with this image. This is before. So this was the scene. I edited the image completely. I even added a texture to this image in Photoshop, but then I thought I would see what it would do to add a little bit of color grading. So the way that I did that with this image, let me go to my history and I'll walk you through it. I'm going to go back to the original image. And so you have this color wheel that you can move around. So we could select a color on the color wheel. And what I like to do is move the saturation all the way over so that I can see what color I may want to select. But I want to show you a better tool. And that is actually to use the custom color tool. So we're going to click this small little color box. It's right there. We're going to click the dropper and then we're going to drag it over to our image. And now we can select a color that's in our image. So I'm going to select this really soft pink, kind of peach color. And once it's selected, we're going to see that color over here in our box. So we can see that color has been selected. Now what I can do is increase the saturation. Look how much it's adding that color. But I just want a tiny bit of it. You can also impact how bright the color comes through, or you can make it even darker. I usually keep the luminance the same unless I'm wanting to brighten. So again, we can increase the saturation. We can just add a tiny bit of that. So we've got a little eyedropper right here, or eyeball. We can turn it off to see before and with that little bit of color grading. You can see it just adds that kind of pink cast to the image. Again, we can reduce it some more. You can see before and after. So global is a fun way if you just want to add that little bit of impact to your image. So let's look at another image and see some different ways that we could use this tool. Okay, so let's go over, I think I actually have this image. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the image before, and let's start looking at these individual. So this image does have some shadows in the image, and if you're ever not sure, you can also look up at your histogram. So we can see right here we've got a lot of shadows in the image. So what I'm going to do is increase the saturation, and then I can either select a color, or again I can use this dropper tool. So I'm going to click that, take the little dropper, come over, and I'm going to select this pink color that's in my image. Could also do the dark color, but I think I want to use some of this light pink. Now I can modify the saturation. I can increase it, decrease it. I could also brighten, which actually might be nice for this image. And again, I've got the hue already selected, and I just want to add a touch of it. So I'm going to see before and after. You can see it's just adding that kiss of pink. Now we also have some bright highlights in this image, so let's go over to the highlights. And again, I'm going to increase the saturation so I can see what I'm working with. And I think for the highlights, I'm going to grab the slider again, and I think I want to just add some of this darker green. So you have to drag the dropper over, and I may want to darken that color, so I'm going to bring down the luminance, and then I'm going to take the saturation down. And just continue to turn it off and on to play with it. It's just making a very subtle impact to those green tones. It's just really subtle. You can see the highlights right here getting a little bit softer. Now, if you don't think that color is exactly what you want, you can use the wheel. So we could come in and add some more pink to those highlights. Look at that. Bring down the saturation. And now if we look at before and after, look how it's impacted that pink color in our image. Now, if we wanted to do the midtones, we could come into midtones, again, raise the saturation so you can see where those midtones are. And now, again, we can play with this slider and go in and out. So maybe we go over to the yellows to add a little warmth to this image. Now I'm going to bring down the saturation, maybe even bring down the luminance, and turn it off and on. It's a very subtle difference. And if you don't like it, you can just completely get rid of it. You can also turn it off right there, so you can see. So that's one way to make those color adjustments to your image. Now, you do not have to use all 3 color grades. You can use one or the other. And again, you can work with all 3 here if you prefer that. So let's take another image. This is an image that I was playing with earlier, and let's go right here. And this would be an option where we could try all 3 if we wanted, instead of making a global. So we've got this bronze color around the outside, and then we've got these beautiful highlights. So I think what I want to do is start with the highlights, and I want to add some of that orange. So what I'm going to do is increase the saturation, and you can't use your color dropper on this slider. So that's the only downside. You have to just go in and pick a color. And then you can increase your blending depending on what you want to impact. So this is a nice option when you know you want to work with all 3 and you really want to blend them. But otherwise, I really prefer to work individually. So for this image, let's go to our highlights. Let's take our dropper and let's select this copper color. I'm going to come over and just select that. And then we can see how we're adding that color into the highlights of our image. Now I'm going to bring the luminance down. I don't want it too bright. And let's turn it on and off. You can see how it's just given the image this nice kind of golden glow. And we can bring the saturation back if you don't want that much of it. So just a little impact. So overall, playing with color grading is just a great way to add some additional color tones, some additional impact to your image. You don't need a lot of it, so usually you're going to use just a tiny bit. You can also try opposite colors. So with green, we could do adding some magenta. We could try adding some blue to an image that has a lot of yellow in it. There's just various options that you can do to really impact a scene. Now this is an intentional camera movement image, and it has a lot of blues and pinks in it. So what I'm going to do here is, let's see if I grab this blue with the dropper, and we can see how that's really intensifying that color. Now I can bring down the saturation, but I could also make it a little brighter, and you can see the impact that it's making overall to the image. So it's another way to adjust and impact your colors in an image in addition to using your HSL panel. So next time you're editing, think about trying color grading and playing around with it in your scenes.